Hello. Welcome to Workplace Culture and Employee Retention. This is research-based workforce retention strategies and leadership succession planning. My name is Sheila Blair. I am an industrial and organizational psychologist, and I'm here to walk you through this training today. Thank you for joining us. I think we're going to learn a lot in the next hour or so. I'll be addressing some real solutions you can take back to the office today, and also introducing a learning series that addresses these issues. It's basically a recipe to success for modern organizations that need to compete in today's marketplace for the right employees. So this is a sneak peek at that learning series. And then if you're interested in the learning series, you can contact us to get more information. Right now, we're going to talk about some of the biggest problems organizations are facing. We're going to talk about the different generations in the workforce and their needs in general terms. But I do want to let you know that I understand that each organization has unique needs, as does each individual. But when I provide information in this presentation, I'm speaking in terms of what the majority of any group needs. So please understand that I do know there are exceptions to the generalities that I'm going to be using today. One of the major issues when we talk about organizational level problems in the workforce is time management. We haven't quite mastered where is the sweet spot of high productivity yet, although a lot of research has stated that it's 30 hours a week, which is probably not feasible for a lot of our organizations. So based on research, it looks like Mexico works the most hours per week, but reports the least productivity in the world. Most of the countries who are at the top of the number of hours worked list are also at the bottom of the productivity list. So does that make any sense? The more hours we work, the least productive we are. So this is a challenge that the US is facing. The US actually ranks 14th in the number of hours worked and 5th in the productivity in the world. In the top 10 highest producing countries in the world, the US clocks the most hours per work week, and we're only number 5 in production. So studies show that Luxembourg, with an average work week of only 29 hours, has the highest level of productivity. So 29 hours, highest level of productivity. The correlation between work hours and productivity is really strong, but not in the direction that's logical. It seems like 30 hours per week is where we get our highest level of productivity. And this 30 hours becomes a significant number when we get into the learning series, as you will see if you decide to move forward with that. And we'll use this in a way that you wouldn't expect. The other issue that we have for employees is overwhelming workloads. You know, we're being asked to do more with less. Organizations have been downsizing, but not downsizing their workloads or expectations. So employees have more on their plates. Organizations are cutting staff, but expecting the same or more productivity. So how does that work? And what you find out when you have unhappy employees due to some of these other issues is that you have very costly and time-consuming employee turnover. It also reduces your productivity level and puts a lot of pressure on other employees. Another issue is transparency. It's really a buzzword that organizations use, but only 14% of organizations are actually transparent. And it's essential for individuals to buy into the goals and objectives of the organization for that organization to be transparent. So these numbers 2 through 5 on the slide all impact employee engagement, which is going to be the crux of what we're going to talk about today. Based on recent studies, there are 5 things that corporations must do. We're going to solve these 5 must-dos with 3 solutions that we're going to address today. But to solve all your talent issues, the solutions are detailed in the learning series that we're introducing. So these are the 5 must-dos. Anticipate change and be flexible. As an organization, it is up to you, it's up to the leadership to make sure that your organization, and that includes your employees, that includes your policies, everything top to bottom is flexible and adaptable to change. Manage your talent well. Lots of tips and tools on that. Having a global and diversity mindset. Encouraging learning across your organization. And build and nurture your network. You're going to see how some of these come into play as I give you some solutions in this presentation. Organizations are struggling to not only find employees, but to keep them. It's important to know the reasons why they leave in order to understand what it's going to take to motivate them to stay. In fact, there's a whole science behind identifying job applicants that fit your organizations. This means that they fit your industry and culture well. They aren't apt to leave. To take that a step further, the fit I'm talking about, can also be applied to how they fit properly within the team that they're being placed. How do their needs match the team leader's style? Do their professional goals match the goals of the organization? These are all the things that need to be considered prior to hiring, but they almost never are, which leads to costly turnover. So many people assume that pay is the issue that leads employees to jump ship, but no matter what generation we're talking about, it's never been the issue. It's always a dissatisfaction with leadership. And this includes studies that were done decades ago all the way up through today. The results are the same. Poor leadership drives employees away from your organization. We all know that the minute someone gets promoted to a leadership position, they instantly become the greatest among our leaders, right? No, wrong. Some people are born leaders, others have learned over time and experienced, how to be great leaders, but even great leaders need help learning about new techniques, cultures, especially how to engage millennials and use the multi-generational workforce to benefit the company. We're going to talk about more on that later. Engagement is critical to employee retention, but there are only a handful of organizations whose culture is truly engaging for employees. That means the rest of us need to step up our game. So how do we get our organizations to have this kind of engagement? There are so many things organizations and their leaders can do to create engagement that we'll talk about today, some of those. And then in the learning series, we'll talk about those more in depth. But something very basic you can do is to pop into a new employee orientation session and introduce yourself. Let them know that you're happy that they chose to come work for your company. Let them know who you are and how you can help. Let's say you're a brand new employee, fresh out of school. This is your first big career job and you're nervous. And in the orientation, the CEO of the company comes in and looks you in the eye and says, "Thank you." Then the next week, he's going to see you in the hall and say, "Good morning," and smile at you. Maybe he even says your name. Do you know how that would make a new employee feel? They would be so excited and instantly engaged in the organization. Our motivations are different today than they were 30 years ago. Until recently, if you asked someone what their motivation for working was, they would say, without a doubt, my paycheck, meaning my ability to live, put food on the table, have a roof over my head. With the next generation, however, when you give them an assignment, they might ask, what's my motivation for accomplishing this? Normally, our response would be something like, because I told you to, because your job depends on it, because you're getting paid to do it. Those really aren't motivating responses in today's workplace. We must instead do what I call inspire cooperation, inspire collaboration, and this is how we motivate employees. For those of us who've been in the workforce for 30 plus years, this just seems silly. The motivation is clear to us, but remember that younger people are unique and must be engaged differently than other generations. And it's not just a generational thing. It could also be a cultural thing. You know, our motivations differ from person to person. So let's look at the slide at what properly engaged employees can do for us. Currently, these are current stats. Currently, 13% of employees are engaged and 63% are not engaged. Okay. But when we have a sense of belonging, so employees feel like they belong on the team, plus we've done the research to align their goals and make sure that they are a good fit, but align their goals with the corporate goals, and we provide them with growth opportunities, this is when we get commitment from them. And when we have commitment and engagement from our employees, we see 37% less absenteeism, 28% higher gross margins, 3.5 times greater earnings per share, 19% increase in operating income from the previous year, and 18% higher productivity. And this is without one additional sale. This is all savings because of employees being highly engaged. So it's savings in efficiency, it's savings in turnover, it's savings in productivity. In the learning series, we would give you solutions to belonging, alignment, and growth so that you have committed employees. The causes of these engagement problems, these are all the issues that we're going to cover in the learning series. You can see some on the slide here. Younger people require more engagement efforts than in previous generations. So if you haven't done anything like this for the purpose of engagement of your employees yet at your organization, we're way behind the curve at this point. So we really need to get some programs in place. But you can see that engagement requires, at the very bottom level, this is where it's kind of starts, is showing an appreciation for what that person brings to the table. Honest, sincere, authentic appreciation. From there, you're going to develop a respect for one another because you're always going to show that appreciation to them. Thank them for contributing and so forth. And you're going to develop a mutual respect. Out of that mutual respect, you will develop trust between you. And I'm referring specifically to, this could be for all employees, but what I'm thinking of is specifically is an employee supervisor relationship. When you have mutual respect, you then start to develop mutual trust. And then, of course, out of that trust comes commitment to the organization and employee retention. So this is nothing new. Poor engagement leads to employee turnover. We know that. We get that. It's interesting when you do the research about when employees are searching for jobs, other jobs to jump ship, they're looking at times of self-reflection in their lives. So here's a couple of events. You know, work anniversaries cause job hunting to jump by 9%. Now, is that because somebody has a work anniversary and says, is this where I really wanted to be in 5 years? I haven't moved up in the organization. I'm not making the salary that I thought I'd make, and other issues. Milestone birthdays. Oh, I just turned 50 and I'm still middle management. I thought I'd be in the C-suite by now. Class reunions, because you're hearing stories of other people and how successful they are. And so you're like, I don't have a lot of those good stories to share, so maybe I should look at where I am. These events cause employees to reflect on where they are in their careers. And if they don't see an upward trajectory with your organization, they're going to look for better opportunities. So be proactive, and it's better to stay on top of career growth than to have to make a counter offer or replace that individual. So building in opportunities for growth is a key component. When we provide professional development opportunities like I'm talking about, where people have the opportunity to grow, our turnover is greatly reduced. Most people who are looking for jobs simply want a better opportunity or career growth. As soon as someone gets hired, they should be put on a career growth plan. How to do this is also discussed in depth in the learning series. And let's talk about raises. Raises should always be tied to achievement and never longevity. At the 6-month or annual review, the supervisor and employee should be creating a mutually beneficial list of goals and target accomplishments to be achieved before the next review. And it should be clearly, sorry, I lost my place there. Let's see. It should be clearly communicated to the employee that their raise is dependent on accomplishing these goals. If they're not accomplished, no raise. If they are, then give them the agreed upon raise. But this doesn't always happen. Usually there's no grounds to give raises except that the employee has survived at that company yet another year and he gets the standard 3%. Now, if a valuable employee comes to you requesting a reasonable raise, you should consider it. So let's say he makes $50,000 a year and he's asking for a 5% raise, which is $2,500. Well, that's more than we normally give, but he's done a really good job, so maybe he deserves it. So we concede and he's happy for a whole year. But what if we said no? No, everyone gets 3% no matter how hard they've worked in the last year. He's upset. He feels like he's given his all to this company, has gone above and beyond, but they won't reciprocate. He leaves the company for a promotion and a 20% raise. Now he's making $60,000 when all he asked of you was $52,500. Let's assume the turnover costs for this position are $9,000. Let's also assume the person coming into this position wants a raise from his previous role, and he negotiates for $55,000. He is new to the role, so it takes him a few months to get up to speed. A lot of productivity is lost. The employee who left just wanted to feel valued and appreciated for all the extra he's done over the last year. He only asked for an additional $1,000 than what you were going to give him anyway. That's $20 per week. But you said no. Instead, it ended up costing you over $12,000 to replace him and a bunch of lost productivity. And you ended up paying the new guy more than the former person, more loyal, hardworking guy was asking. These mistakes happen all the time in companies. Don't get me wrong, there are times when no is the right answer to a raise request, but it really needs to be looked at on an individual basis. Companies are afraid of adding to their legacy costs, so they either don't do raises or they do them the wrong way. The standard annual 3% situation removes any motivation that employees may have to work hard or put in extra effort. If everybody gets the same raise, why should I bust my tail when the other person hardly does anything? If you think giving someone a raise is going to affect your legacy costs, try this legacy cost on for size. This cost is annual until the organization makes hiring changes, cultural changes, improves leadership, sets up a mentoring program, and all the other things that this learning series is going to teach you how to do. So here we have a no-name company, ABC company. They have 300 employees. The average turnover rate is 20%, which is 60 employees. The average cost of turnover is $9,000 per employee. They're spending $540,000 per year just to replace employees. Wouldn't it be great if they invested that money into building these programs where employees would want to stick around and all of those, most of those turnover costs go away? That's what the series is about. Let's look at the different generations in the workforce, just so you understand what we're talking about. We actually have some of these, so even silent generation people are still working. So we have basically 5 generations in the workforce right now. Gen Zs are coming into the workforce right now. Millennials are already here. There's a couple of stats, There's a couple of stats that you should know. By 2030, which is only 10 years away, 75% of the workforce are going to be millennials. And that's why we talk about millennials so much, is that we really need to know how to engage them. And frankly, they've been in the workforce for darn near 20 years already. So, if not more. So we have to really understand how to engage this group, especially going forward. Here you can see a breakdown. This is as of 2015. I mentioned in 2030, they were going to be 75% of the workforce. At 2015, they were over 50%. I'm sorry. This is in millions, not percentages. There were 53.5 million millennials in the workforce, baby boomers 44.6, Gen Xers 52.7. So basically what you're seeing here is a third, a third, a third. And like I said, by 2030, it will be 75% millennials. So who are millennials? If we want to engage them better, we have to really figure out who they are. There's about 80 million of them in the US. They're the largest generation yet, larger than the baby boomers. They're the most ethnically and racially diverse. They grew up on technology, so they're very familiar with it. They tend to work smarter, not harder. They want to make a difference in the world. They're very achievement oriented, so they like to reach goals. There's a lot of stereotypes about millennials, though, that we have to be careful about. And I'm not just talking about millennials. Of course, I'm also talking about Generation Z. So I'm kind of going to switch gears and just say younger people in the workforce. So one of the stereotypes is that they walk into a new job demanding a high salary and a promotion because they're concerned about their own survival. They likely already have a high student debt payment. There's likely no Social Security for them, as we've heard. They've seen the seniors deciding between prescriptions and food to survive stories on the news, and they don't want to be in that situation. So they're upfront making it clear that they want to climb the ladder and become financially stable. So they're a little bit of a different twist. You know, there's these stereotypes out there. I'm trying to give you a different perspective. So letter B, a lot of people think that they're lazy. Well, what I've seen is They have the ability to leverage technology to be able to work smarter, not harder. They demand a work-life balance, which is a good thing. If you get the impression that they're lazy, they're probably in the wrong job. They want to be challenged. They want goals to achieve. Letter C, they work to live rather than live to work. Yes, they do want the work-life balance, but they're willing to put in the hours. They prefer to do it from home, though. They were born with a laptop in their hands, so sitting in a chair in front of the TV doing work just comes second nature to them. But this requires the organization to be flexible with where they do their work and what hours they put in. Maybe not everybody wants to work an 8-to-5 job. Maybe they want to get their 8 hours in, but it might be spaced out throughout the day. Letter D, they are compulsive job hoppers. Well, they crave constant feedback, which is not what we typically do in organizations. Instead, we do annual reviews. We give them feedback once a year. They want career growth and leadership development. 71% of young people who plan to leave their jobs over the next 2 years say it's because, and this is a quote, leadership skills were not being fully developed. Can you imagine wiping out 75% of turnover by changing 2 things about your organization? Again, this is what we're going to talk about in the learning series. Letter E, they have little time for experienced colleagues. Well, this is supposing people don't want to engage with older peers because they have nothing to offer. The older peers have nothing to offer. And it's also assuming that the younger people are so smart that they should be mentoring their older coworkers. There is a way we can and we should have a mutual exchange of information between the generations in the workplace. Baby boomers are typically afraid of sharing their vast knowledge and experience because it took them 30 plus years to get it. Why should they share with a young person who hasn't been run through their paces yet? And they don't necessarily want to take advice from a young person either. What do they know anyhow? This is the attitude of some people. They're too green. Young people are too green. The reality is that both of these generations, including Generation X, have a lot to learn from each other and should be encouraged to do so. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that in a few minutes. So why do we focus on younger workers? They're obviously a big focus of this training and this learning series because of the fact that they're going to make up 75% of the U.S. workforce by 2030. Organizations are going to need to compete for their loyalty. And they want to enjoy work. They'd rather make less money to enjoy a job. They're just unique people. We have to understand where they're coming from in order to properly engage them. Money isn't the only thing. I mean, I know that they have this stereotype out there that they're just money hungry, but that's really isn't it. They desire happiness. They desire flexibility in their schedule. Social and environmental issues are important to them. They don't trust easily, which makes supervising them all the more difficult. That's why we need some extra skills. So specifically millennials, why do millennials or younger people change jobs? They want career growth. They change jobs because of an organizational reputation. Maybe there's another organization that has a better reputation. Maybe they give more. Maybe they're greener. These are all things that they care about. They would like a challenging role. And yeah, salary is number 4. It's not in the top 3 reasons why people leave. Just like the other stat we showed you. So let me give you some solutions today so that you can start this process. But of course, again, we're going to go through this in detail if you decide to do the learning series. So the first solution is develop your leaders. The problems in the workplace aren't caused by young people. Far from it, in fact. Young people have us heading in the right direction, if you ask me. How often do we promote employees to management because they were great at doing the job they were doing? All of a sudden, we expect them to be not just managers of people, but great leaders with no additional training. This almost never works out. So even managers who've been in management roles for the last 30 years are lacking what's required of today's leaders. Leaders are also great managers, but managers are not always great leaders. The kind of leaders we're talking about here are the kind of leader that we all hope to be. Maybe some of us already are. This is the kind of leader that inspires his people to follow him, the kind who respect him so much they manage themselves for fear of marring his reputation. Developing leaders is tough work. It's not easy to take individuals with different backgrounds and develop them into a unified network working toward the success of the organization and its employees. Add to that the complexity that comes with the fact that women and men lead differently. All individuals, regardless of gender, experience, race, culture, etc., have the opportunity to be great leaders if given the right set of tools, which we'll be providing in this learning series. For many years, old leadership tactics were acceptable, but not anymore. It's necessary to make a change, and you could see the difference here. Now we think long-term. We think about the mission of the organization and we tie things to it along with the vision and the values. The old form of work structure was silos, and now we want cross-disciplinary teams. And you can see, some of the other examples as well. So there's definitely a new way to lead, but we have to give people the tools to be able to do it. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the differences between leadership and management. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the list on the right, but today's organizations need a person who can both lead and manage. So you have to be skilled at both. When you think about the leaders at your organization, and by leaders right now, I mean anyone in a management role, I'm certain they're not perfect. Well, no one is really. But if you have leaders that don't have all of these qualifications on the left of the slide, along with a litany of others that aren't even mentioned here, we can help them get there. When you look at the list on the right, I want you to think about if you know managers who are leading right now who have some of these traits. I can relate. That's the reason I got into this field, is because I've had some poor leaders in the past who've been my supervisors. So the ultimate goal of any organization should be to engage and retain good employees. You might be thinking, wait a minute, that's not what we're in business to do. We're in business to make sales, to manufacture a product, to deliver a service. I'm here to tell you, if you get in the business of engaging employees, the employees will get to the business of making those sales, manufacturing your product, and delivering that service with excellence. And you're going to find out that you will have success like you never thought was possible. Consider the number of young people in the workforce today. Leaders have to do a new method for leading. The needs of young people are so unique, none of the previous methods are going to work with this group. Instead of being directive, leaders need to be consensus creators. Instead of operating behind closed doors, we need transparency. Instead of demanding, we need to inspire cooperation. There is a recipe of techniques that we'll teach you in the learning series to be able to lead all generations in the workplace. Now, we can do this for you in one of two ways. We could, uh, come to your organization and do it with your leaders. We could actually walk you through it as um, not just a training, but as a focus group, maybe a C-suite retreat, something like that. So there's a couple different opportunities to do this. My recommendation too is when it comes to training leadership throughout your organization, my recommendation is to train everyone with the same message to make the greatest impact on your company. Don't let bad managers continue to drive good employees away. Turn them into agents of change for your organization. Transform them into great leaders. This is what we need in our organizations today, and this is what young people will respond to. Solution number 2, creating a learning culture. Only around 1 in 10 employees have a true learning culture, defined as a culture that supports an open mindset, an independent quest for knowledge, shared learning directed toward the mission and goals of the organization. A learning culture consists of a community of workers instilled with a growth mindset. People not only want to learn and apply what they've learned to help their organization, but they also want to feel compelled, or they feel compelled to share their knowledge with others. Now, why is that important? Because a transformative learning culture is going to yield all kinds of benefits, like the ones on this slide already, including increasing employee engagement, which has a direct impact on productivity, retention, customer satisfaction. It also builds that growth mindset within employees and across the organization. That growth mindset yields ever higher levels of performance where, people learn from their mistakes and actively seek out challenges. A learning culture enhances creativity and innovation within individuals and teams. When companies encourage risk-taking and invite valuable lessons that come from failure, creativity and innovation soar. A learning culture improves motivation among all employees. Studies show that humans are most motivated by autonomy, mastery, and meaningful purpose. Learning naturally empowers employees to be self-directed and gives them opportunities to grow and improve. A learning culture helps the organization keep pace with the rapid changes in technology. Technology now drives a need for employees to be retrained almost monthly on some new device, software, or social media outlet. And lastly, a learning culture cultivates leadership and emotional intelligence. Leadership is not just for learning, is not just for technology and hard skills, but key human skills like leadership, self-control, empathy, communication, conflict resolution, cultural competence. All of those can be learned, and they drive measurable benefits throughout the organization. The benefits I just described come from a transformational and authentic corporate culture, which is a central theme of the learning series. Many people in the workforce are afraid to share their experience and knowledge, even if they will be retiring soon, because they feel like it gives them an advantage over others in the workplace. But when you create a learning culture and you provide professional development and growth opportunities, your employees get a sense of security and pride that comes from sharing information. When you at your organization make learning an important part of the culture, you're going to see positive change and engagement of your employees. And this sends a message that we want you to grow, but also that we value you and want to make what you've learned part of our organization. As a company, you can encourage learning at no cost to you simply by having a lunch and learn series where a team member of any rank can take up a half hour to an hour at lunchtime in the conference room to teach their colleagues something they They may know that others may not. Maybe it's the difference between this version of Excel and the last version. Maybe it's how to import YouTube videos into your PowerPoints, or the new information they learned at the conference. In fact, if you're sending people to conferences, this is an excellent way to ensure that you're getting your money's worth by making it mandatory that they return from the conference and do a lunch and learn on the information obtained, and that they share it with their colleagues. I would set up an electronic calendar specifically for this purpose, where people can teach, sign up to teach, and so that others know whether they want to join that talk that day. This is a wonderful way to get engagement started at your organization. And all it will cost you is the electricity for the presentation. Everyone will be on their lunch hour, but they are choosing to attend to learn something new. Lunch and learns are one way to encourage your employees with all the knowledge to leave a legacy of sharing that knowledge with others instead of a reputation for keeping it to themselves. Lunch and learns are just one way to engage employees through learning, but there are many more ways as well. Another way that you can, establish a learning culture is to partner with a learning organization, such as NCTS. A learning partner is going to be critical to the success of your organization going forward. So are you upgrading your software? Ask your learning partner to train your staff on the new software to improve productivity. Are you changing your organizational structure to be more project-based? Ask your learning partner to train your staff in project management fundamentals. Are you in need of continuing education credits for your employees to maintain their licensure? Talk to your learning partner about your options. When you take learning and development seriously as an organization, you're going to inspire your employees to want to stay relevant and not sedentary. They will embrace lifelong learning and keep bringing you innovative ideas and ensure growth and success of your company. Solution number 3 for employee engagement issues: establish mentoring. Another way to create a learning culture is to establish a mentorship program within your organization. It should be highly encouraged, but voluntary on the part of both the mentor and the mentee. Once we have excellent leaders in our organization that fit the criteria for the type of leadership mentioned previously, who've gone through some type of training to get them there, then we can work to put that to work to help others become excellent leaders within the organization. So let your leaders mentor other leaders. You should be building your own succession plan and creating the ideal leaders for your organization. Creating a mentoring plan is necessary today. It's a must. The great news is it's a low-cost effort. In fact, it's a no-cost effort except for the time you're paying salaries, so the mentor and mentee can meet. Studies have shown that these relationships increase job satisfaction and employee engagement and the commitment one has to remaining at an organization for a long period of time, because they see from day one what their growth opportunities are. And mentorship programs should start from day one. In fact, organizations can use the fact that they have mentoring programs as a marketing tool for recruiting talent. So what are the necessary elements of mentoring? Mentors aren't just average managers. They should be asked to be mentors because they are stellar leaders. These are the individuals in your organization that you're trusting to represent you in the absolute best light and be the epitome of professionalism, ethical behavior, high self-confidence, not arrogance, but someone who wouldn't feel threatened by someone else coming up through the ranks. And fearlessness. Only those leaders who fit this bill should be allowed to mentor. And this is my rule of thumb. Mentors should not be the mentee's supervisor. They shouldn't even be in the chain of command in order to avoid conflict. Many times, mentoring is an uncomfortable business. Mentoring is about the mentor and the mentee spreading their wings into uncharted territory. It's about building trust and relationships. And that can sometimes be very tenuous. Mentorship gets personal. At times, it can be like a parent-child relationship. It can get emotional. Mentors need to be comfortable in showing vulnerability in the workplace. And they have to be able to admit mistakes. This is the proof that the mentee needs to understand that it's okay to admit mistakes. The fact that the mentor is doing that. This program needs to be voluntary because you don't want individuals being mentors who resent it because the results for the mentee will be disastrous. And second, you need to use a little psychology here in order to find mentor-mentee matches. So for anyone not comfortable sharing such information, it's going to feel invasive for them. And you'll need to do an assessment for all your mentors, one for each employee coming into your organization, and then match them up. Remember, you're not looking for similar strengths, but complementary behaviors instead. Authentic and transformational leaders can have a huge impact on the success, personal lives, and happiness of their mentees, which in turn has a tremendously positive impact on the success of your organization. This program is really a no-brainer for your leaders. Who knows where you and I would be today if we had a trusted mentor early on in our careers say to us genuinely, I believe in you. You can do this. I can see that you're going to go right to the top in this business. You're going to do amazing things and have a tremendous impact, not only on this company, but on this industry. I'm blessed just to be here to witness your journey. It won't be easy. At times you'll want to give up, but I'll be here for you and we'll get through it together. I won't let you down, and I know you won't let me down either. Through hard work and determination, we're going to get you to not only meet, but exceed your goals. Believe it or not, as a mentor, you might be the only person who's ever said that to your mentee. You could be the person your mentee has been looking for to unlock their potential. You become part of a circle of support for that individual that encourages them to stay focused. A mentee with that level of support can do incredible things for your organization. This is someone that you might recognize, Mark Zuckerberg. He has a net worth of $64 billion, which is not too bad for a 33-year-old. Of course, he's the founder of Facebook. He had a mentor, and you might recognize him as well, Steve Jobs. This is Oprah Winfrey. She's a media icon. She also had a mentor to help her to get where she is today, and that was Barbara Walters. Bill Gates, net worth $88 billion. He's the founder of Microsoft. He also had a mentor. But you're seeing a pattern emerging here, right? If you want great leaders from your organization, you have to give them great leaders from which to learn. Would Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates be where they are today without their mentors? I doubt it. Let's see who Bill Gates' mentor was. Warren Buffett. This is Quincy Jones. He's also a music icon. He had a mentor as well. You get what I'm trying to tell you. His mentor was Ray Charles. Also part of mentoring is career growth. This is a path that you discuss with your mentee. You mutually decide upon it. One mistake that a lot of organizations are committing these days is that they're following a trend called flattening their organizations. This is where you remove a lot of levels of management. It's a huge detriment to career growth. which is one of the most important things to employees. If you want employees to stick around, bring back the layers. You may think it's saving you money, but in the long run, it's not. It's costing you employees and turnover costs, and it's overburdening your loyal employees. Give your mentees the opportunity to bounce around the organization so that when they're promoted to leadership roles, they have a big picture mentality. They can empathize with each other, with other department needs. They understand the importance of cross-department communications. So on the left, we see a flattened organization where we have the top of the company, the CEO. We've got some C-suite individuals. Maybe there's one more level in here, which is middle management, and then we have employees. And on the right, we see an organization that's not flattened. And the items in the red, we have an employee that starts out in this department and is able to move up because they have a mentor. This is succession planning 101. It's very basic, but a lot of organizations don't do this. So these are some of the things that the learning series will address. It supports all industries. Every organization is experiencing these problems, and these solutions will work with all organizations. If you prefer solutions that are specific to your industry and your unique organization, we can help you with that as well by customizing the series specifically for your needs and delivering it at your organization to your staff exclusively. At the end of the learning series, you're going to understand why it's important to make these changes. We're going to train your leaders to transition to that transformational and authentic leadership style needed for today's workplace. We will teach you a new way of hiring individuals that will improve their longevity, commitment to your organization, and likelihood of success. We will provide you with specific onboarding techniques to fully engage employees from the beginning and show you how to set up a mentoring system as well as a career development system that not only benefits employees but greatly benefits the organization. We'll show you how you can be competitive with your compensation packages without being too costly. You know, it's important to understand that young people are looking for things other than financial gain, so you can use that to your advantage. We can teach you how to build a culture that will keep employees engaged for a long time. And there's more to learn in the learning series too, but all of these work together to create the perfect recipe for success in your organization. And by success, I'm talking about organizational attractiveness to draw in great candidates, employee engagement, employee retention, succession planning, higher productivity, higher levels of ethics among employees, happier customers, increased sales, and ultimately increase profits. I know that you're probably thinking that sounds too good to be true, but it's not. Let me give you an example. This is an organization. They are a tier 1 automotive contractor. They employ about 500 people. They have a 20% annual turnover rate, and they profit $5 million a year. Based on implementing the items in the learning series, they were able to improve productivity by 18%. They improved employee retention from 20%. It went down to 5% turnover rate. They improved 25% over 25% of their gross margin went up. So that is a 26% increase in profits without one additional sale, just by implementing these changes. So the learning series is based in science. This is not opinion. It's using best practices based on research and outcomes. We use field tested strategies, and it's taught by a member of the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology. Just some statistics for you. 80% of employee turnover is due to bad hiring decisions. We're going to fix this in the learning series. 38% of all new hires leave in their first year. We'll fix this in the learning series. 20% of the workforce is the average rate per company. We can help you decrease that through the learning series. The learning series is unique. It doesn't exist anywhere else. There's no other professional in this field who's put all these components, this whole recipe together. It's just an exclusive offer for you to take advantage of it. You can reach out to me at SheilaBlairPMP@gmail.com. It's on the screen. If you're interested in that learning series, please reach out to me. Thank you very much for attending today's session.